welcome to Kari Byron, who is my guest. Felicitations, everybody. This is so exciting, y'all. Hi, Kari.
Hi. How are you?
I feel like we're Twitter friends, and this is our first coffee date after meeting online, and I'm kind of nervous because I'm like, I want you to like me.
I already like you.
Okay, good. Yay!
But it's 2 p.m. Coffee is a little strong for me right now, so.
Oh, believe me, I have had decaf for years because I am such a, I don't want to say uptight, but take that and multiply it by 50, and then you've got my constitution. So even a mild green tea in the morning tends to get me, it's like a big old upper. I don't know.
I'm a huge insomniac.
Really?
I am a crazy sleeper. I'm also a sleep talker and a sleepwalker, like a little bit scary. So
I want details. This is interesting, and I want to hear everything you've done to deal with your insomnia, because I had it for 2 years and it blew my mind. Like, I'm not as smart as I used to be.
Oh, definitely not. And once you have a kid, it's almost like you're just listening for them to breathe for the rest of their life. So There's that. But I could do caffeine. You got to lay it down. You got to exercise. I leave paper and pencil next to my bed so I can write down the things that are stressing me out that I know I have to remember tomorrow. And I mean, it's a constant struggle.
And usually it's illegible and something that's not a priority, or it's something that you've done in the past that you're obsessed that the person is going to hate you because of it. And then you get up at 3 a.m. and email them. I'm sorry, I accidentally insulted people from Sylmar. I know that you dated someone from there one time, and then they're like, what? I don't remember you saying that. And I'm like, just kidding.
It's very specific.
That actually happened.
Clearly.
Oh my God. I'm so thrilled for you to be here. Now, Felicitations is an unformed, still in beta podcast after almost 3 years. So basically we're just going to chat, and I want to hear, first of all, I want to go back to this insomnia thing, because is this something you had your whole life, or was it after you had a baby that you had this problem? Because that's what happened with me. But I want tips and recommendations other than just getting rid of caffeine completely, which, did you do that?
No, I love coffee. I don't have a lot of vices, so that one I'm going to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a sleepwalker my whole life. When I was a little kid, my parents would find me all over the place. My daughter has taken up the mantle, so every now and then she'll just she used to walk downstairs, and sometimes it would be it sounded like tongues almost. She'd be like, blah, 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 blah. And it's so scary because little kids are horrifying. I mean, it's Halloween time. We know that children are so scary, especially when they're out of their mind with their eyes open. She's come right next to my face before and just went, mommy.
What? Mommy. With that demon voice?
Yeah.
Asleep?
Well, yep. Asleep. But I have done these same things, which we're just going to dive straight into crazy. I know this is a new relationship.
Listen, this is my area. You got crazy all over the place right now.
I always wanted to go to a sleep center because, I know there's one in San Francisco. At some point, I'm going to go look them up, because they say that it's like light sleep, like you don't fully go into it. So, there's two, it's either your brain's awake and your body's asleep, or your body's asleep and your brain's awake. And then so for me,
yes, what do you do?
I will open my eyes. I have fallen asleep on a train before with my eyes open, and my sister's talking to me and realizes that I'm asleep and just starts giving me a Charlie horse. She's like, you're so crazy. It's creepy that you do that. I have walked out the door in a party dress and walked into a flood in knee socks. I have climbed through a window and ended up a mile from my house. During Mythbusters, when we were in Alaska, it's something about being in unfamiliar places. We were in these gross little cabins with like chemical toilets, and that was it. And the snow had gotten to so high up that I was just wearing night clothes, and I stepped off the step and just like went waist deep in snow, which woke me up. So I started setting traps for myself, like cans and stuff, instead of, in front of doors. And then finally I found a magnetic alarm that I put on my hotel room door just in case.
Wow. No, that's okay. So that is crazy. There's a guy named Mike Birbiglia. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a comedic. He's amazing. Like, I saw he did a one-man show about being a dad, which I had some issues with thematically, but he's an amazing it's just a guy's perspective on, I'm like, screw you, where was your wife? But it's not, I really should let him do his art because he's a brilliant writer and a comedic voice, but he actually has a disorder where he's violent when he sleeps. So he basically has to be tied down at night.
Shut up.
No, for real. Look it up. He's done
I saw that in movies. That's real?
No, it's real. And he even did, I think he did like an indie movie about that. And then he mentioned it in the second One Man Show that I saw, which is great. You could see it, I think, on Netflix. I forget the name of it, but he is really brilliant. But yeah, he has this thing where he has to be literally tied down. And after he had a baby, he had to be locked in the room and tied down because they were worried he might just do something violent in his sleep to either the wife or the baby. I mean, it's just, what do you do? I don't know. This obviously, just a genetic thing. It's just very odd.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, I've only tried to choke somebody out once, but I feel like maybe they deserved it.
Wait, what?
It was, I watched a lot of martial art movies right before bed, and it and my ex-husband just, that's enough
maybe
of that
story. Maybe that was, sometimes the subliminal is really not so subliminal, right?
Yeah, right. No, but I've never done anything violent. I'm glad there. I usually just have something fantastical that I walk around and see.
I talk a lot, but I talk not in real. So I'm wondering if we all recorded ourselves, are we all speaking the same sleep language? Would that be amazing?
Interesting.
Sounds like a horror film, right?
Yeah, that sounds like something that there's got to be an ology for.
That's a good podcast. Have you ever heard that? Allie Ward. She does this podcast. That is one of I think I would, of all podcast-ish people in the world, I think I would fangirl out around her the most in person.
Yeah. You've never met her in person?
No. Have you?
Yeah. And she was amazing. I feel like we should have like a redhead triad.
We should have a redhead awkward 2 p.m. coffee.
We should.
Where we don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
All right. Well, these are all good tips, or at least horror stories about your particular. Can you tell me, so how is quarantine treating you? Because we talked about this briefly before we just started. I was like, we got to save it because this is basically top of mind on everything and everybody's mind, top of everyone's mind. How are you coping? What are your tips? And is it an up and down process? Is it like good for you? What's going on?
I mean, I think we've all been on the same roller coaster where at first it was scary, but almost exciting. And we were having like champagne Zoom calls with our friends. And I was connecting with people that I don't usually connect with. And like having long conversations with somebody that I met on Twitter. That's like, I just need to talk to somebody. Can we talk?
Yeah.
And then it kind of slowed down and I got more and more hermit-like. But there was a period of time where I am renovating everything in my house. I am doing crazy things like taking all of my Amazon boxes and putting them together and turning them into a knife throwing target so that I can just go into my garage and practice knife throwing because I'm losing my mind. My kid's going to school. I'm trying to figure out how to be a teacher and not crazy and not leave the house. And we're wiping down groceries. And I've sort of settled into it a bit. I feel like we're all realizing this is how it's going to be. So
yeah, you have to find your rhythm. Now, can we talk about what kind of knife you use? Because you're the kind of person I want to know the particulars of your hardware. Okay. Not in a weird way, but like just what kind of knife would you prefer to use when you throw it at like box people? Are they people that you're building a box person, or what's going on?
Just a target, nothing too crazy. It was, it was. I thought I'd be better at it because I did it as a kid when my dad took me to buy throwing knives when I was like 11 or 12.
What?
Well, during the summer we would stay on a farm in Oregon and there was just nothing to do. And there's no TV, there's no video games, nothing. So we get some hay bales and we throw knives at it, or I'd hula hoop, or I'd look for shamrocks for hours at a time. It was just
That's kind of great though, adorable. Because like that, what I've done with my child is just increase screen time, which doesn't feel responsible, but I just don't know what else to do. Like I allow her an hour of TV and a half hour of Mario, which sometimes becomes an hour just because I can't beat a boss,
I mean, wait, so that's like not even that much. Oh, my lighting just went out.
I feel good. You have a great setup too. Was this pre-quarantine, or is this something that you designed for quarantine Zooms? Because we're literally living on Zoom right now.
No, this is actually, I couldn't find my long cord, to plug in. So I'm really close to my fireplace.
Oh, there's a fireplace under you. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And all my lighting's falling apart. So.
And who's the skeleton by you? Is that a friend? What's going on? There's a skeleton literally looming over your shoulder right now.
Yeah. It's not a Halloween decoration. This is George. Just lives in my living room. I always wanted a skeleton. Always did. My kindergarten teacher had one in her closet, and I thought it was so cool. And I'm like, when I grow up, I want a skeleton.
And when did you get it? Was that when you realized I'm Kari Byron and I'm famous now?
No, this is one of the early things I bought when I started. Yeah, it's
kind of like a guy in their Lamborghini or whatever. This is Kari and her skeleton.
Plastic. It's not real. It's not
real.
No. It's
is it legal to buy a real skeleton, like a person's skeleton? Is that even legal?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I meant like not a plastic one.
All the time. They're just really expensive. For experiments we did, we buy human skulls.
You guys did a lot of experiments on human skulls too, right? Like it wasn't just, you had an order, like probably a regular order on Mythbusters.
Nah, too big. That would be too big for the budget because it was like $300 to get a human skull.
Oh, okay. So that was too much? Because you guys always, the production value on that show, I don't mean to segue into work stuff, but it was always so impressive. It looked so grandiose. And yet I guess it was, the way you describe it, you're like behind the scenes, you have a chemical toilet, you can't afford a skull. Like what was going on there?
I mean, we had like no budget. Seriously, we, all of our explosives were part of a training exercise for the bomb squad.
Wow.
We got so much free stuff just for asking for it, and a lot of begging and pleading. And once Mythbusters became big enough, people would volunteer, they'd show up. Like we didn't spend much money, and it's in San Francisco instead of LA. So we didn't pay for pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
We paid for the, tequila to buy the bomb squad after we wrapped the show.
That's so DIY. I had no idea it was that low budget. That's like the guild, like we couldn't have done anything without people just helping us out to make something. That's so interesting. Wow.
We have same roots.
I had no idea. How did you guys keep going for 10 years? Because I was so exhausted just from favors. Like, I'm still paying back favors. People will be like, hey, remember that suit I lent you in season 5? Well, can you come and do a Zoom for my kids' preschool? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah, a lot of classroom work. And I'm starting a new adventure where I'm asking a lot of favors. So I have a feeling I will be tied up in Zoom classroom meetings for the next decade.
So what are you doing? Now you have a Discovery Channel show, or is that over? And do you have something new? I want to hear all about that.
So I'm doing a show called Crash Test World.
Yes, that's the one I knew you were doing. Yes.
And it's it's kind of, for me, Mythbusters felt like cutting edge, wild west of cable, when cable went from, animal documentaries and a couple channels to a million channels. But they started off with a couple reality shows. So Mythbusters was new, and we found our interest in our voice because we kind of developed in this new world. I feel like this is the same thing. So we're in pandemic, and everything's streaming now. And Crash Test World, you can see both on Discovery Channel soon, as well as projectexplore.org, which right now it's free. And our shows are cut up into pods, and every pod has a lesson plan with it. So it is family friendly, edutainment. So anything from learning about beekeeping in Detroit to how do we live in a place of peace, in a place of great conflict like Israel, where they're doing surfing for peace, or tech camps for kids of all faiths.
That's amazing. I want to show this to my baby. Do you think I could show it to her? She's 3.5, but she loves nature stuff. She loves documentaries and stuff. Or is it a little too young? What would you say the age range would be?
I think I've always done stuff that is multi-generational, and there's lots of bright colors. And I have a thing for when I'm on TV. I like to wear bright colors. My regular life, it's blacks and band shirts, but on TV, I like bright colors. So kids kind of, I don't know,
gravitate to that. And whose idea was it to do like the lesson plan stuff? Is that a post-pandemic kind of adjustment because of sort of wanting to help, kids at home learn a little bit more? Or is that always part of the plan of the show?
Well, this is what is so beautiful. The projectexplore.org has been streaming since for 17 years, since before YouTube.
Wow.
And it has been travel adventure. And the woman who founded it, her name's Ginny Bukos, and she, after 9/11, saw a bunch of xenophobia, and she wanted to be able to bring the world into the classroom. So she's been making these little educational pods and having hosts go out around the world for a very long time. At one point, she decided she wanted to take it to a high production level. And she kind of connected with me on Twitter through our friend Dallas Campbell, who was hosting a show with me. And we just talked for like 2 hours about our dreams for the world and decided to create the show. And I had written a book called Crash Test Girl. And so the show became Crash Test World, because it's about just seeing through curious eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's incredible. So this is all predates, but it's perfect for now because I'm always looking for resources where I can like, hey, let's learn about a bee today, right? And I always like show her 3 videos on it, but like it'd be so awesome to have a more in-depth sort of plan, but also just filling out that one video with other things. So, because you don't just learn by watching one video, right? You got to watch several and reinforce it and look at it from different ways. And that sounds so wonderful. How crazy is it that quarantine happened and you're like perfect for it? Is that weird?
We've been working on this for a couple years, trying to get it off the ground, because we weren't going through traditional cable networks like every show I've ever done. It's something different. And so though you will be able to see it regular cable, you also are going to be able to stream it. And I love this show so much. All the cameramen, all the people that work on it, we all walk away with this moment of hope and empathy and this feeling of connection. And since we were filming before pandemic, we were traveling to Israel, Qatar, Berlin, Detroit. Like we were going all over the place. And it was really cool to have a show that made me feel so good. So much so that our cameramen live in Berlin. They fly to where we're going. Like we're from all over the world, but we believe so hard in the project that even after 12 hours of filming, we all go have a drink together. We have dinner together, whatever. We're just excited to be there.
That's amazing. And it really does. I think a part of the bad thing about being such a big country is that a lot of people aren't exposed to other cultures. They're not exposed to the idea that other people live completely differently and have an amazing place to live, right? So we have this sort of insular idea that America is the way that we live is the end all be all. And I think that foments a lot of xenophobia. It foments a lot of judgment and a lack of empathy. And I think the more you could see the world from different angles, the more you're able to be empathetic to other people's plights outside your own, worldview. And so the earlier we can expose children to stuff like that, the better. That's why my daughter, she has eaten a lot of different kind of foods. And thank goodness in Los Angeles, I can get her Ethiopian food. I can get her, kebabs or schnitzel or whatever. Somebody in Kansas can't do that, right? They don't have the breadth of exposure. And even though it's at their fingertips, like having that entry point is so important. So I think it's just so important because really, we're in a world where people need to change their minds a little bit.
And it's kind of the ethos of the show is I want a 9-year-old kid in, LA to be able to see a 9-year-old kid in Delhi, to see a 9-year-old kid in Tokyo. And they realize they're more similar than different. I mean, we all want to feel safe. We all want to love. We all want to play, and we all eat. Like we have all of these really comfortable norms that we're all seeking out. So it's very easy to, when you're in person, be able to familiarize yourself with somebody's situation and be like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm going through.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the universals, but there's also those differences. Like I think I got my baby a book the other day, and I can't remember what it's called. How We Are All Different. It might have just been that, like it's a kid's book. And it was all about just a day in the life of a kid from all different places in the world. And I learned something just thinking about like when they wake up, and kids in Spain might eat at 9 p.m., and they don't go to sleep until like midnight or whatever. They take a nap. They have just different ways of living that are not necessary, that could have some better things than the way we live. But I think, again, as Americans, we're kind of indoctrinated to think that our standard of living is the best, and it should be imposed on other people, right? And I think that's where we fall short in expanding our own worldviews and adjusting and also being empathetic. So that's wonderful. Everyone needs to check out projectexplore.org. And so your show is on the channel. Do you have like any creative involvement in the website in a bigger way?
I am currently creatively consulting for future programming, but
Ooh.
there's a lot of things I can't talk about just yet.
no,
but I will
it.
tell you that Crash Test World is going to be the beginning of the revolution.
I love it. Like I was homeschooled, and I see, a lot of parents struggling right now because they're kind of, they're trying to, the traditional schooling in this distance kind of learning world doesn't really work, right? I don't know how you have an 11-year-old, so you can even speak better to this. So I was raised kind of like a wolf. I didn't really have any, I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like you would just the idea that I sometimes I forget that people just can't understand how I was raised. Like I never had to wake up at some time. I never took a test. I never took a test until like when I was 12, like I'm not kidding. And so just, no structure whatsoever. I had a weekly hour English teacher who'd give me some homework and I just do it when I wanted to do it. And I go to lessons a lot. Right. So I had no consistency, but also no mandate to like, you have to learn this. So there were certain things that I'm really blind to, like, I'm sorry, physics is probably a little bit of a blind spot if it's not theoretical. Anything practical, like your skill set impresses me so much because having to figure out how far something's going to go when a catapult throws it is like beyond me, but I could sit here and talk about topology eight hours a day. You know what I'm saying? So like those are just, but I was able to gravitate to the things that I gravitated to and learn really a lot about them. In this day and age, I can't imagine what I would be able to, the resources that are at the people's fingertips, but like finding those resources is really hard and it takes a lot of work, and vetting them is even harder, right?
Well, I mean, homeschooling is very different than remote learning. What you did is a whole different way of learning, but so many really impressive women I know have been homeschooled. So I can see where you came from.
I know. You can see that sort of like we don't fit in. We don't have a perspective on ourselves that other people have on us when they look at us. And I feel that does lead to a disconnect. Like why you kind of have a perception of the way you fit into the world and it doesn't fit with other people. And sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. But at the end of the day, like a lot of the things that I don't fall into are things I'm proud of. And I don't want my child to fall in those patterns of thoughts about herself, especially as an identity as a woman. I think it's so hard. I don't know, how conscious are you about that with your daughter, and what do you do to sort of counteract that cultural seismic sort of pushing her in certain directions?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, yours is 3 and eats all those different foods. Mine did too. Now she's like, I like things that are yellow, white, or orange. Like,
oh no, she won't eat anything but a bean and a protein noodle anymore. Oh, so believe me, but like, oof, it's so difficult. And I'm just like, every time I tell her something, she's like, great, I'll do the opposite of that.
Oh, we'll get used to that. Yeah, they don't get any better. Mine's 11 and is experimenting with all of the things the internet has to offer, which I feel like I get overwhelmed constantly trying to monitor because, I mean, I've had a lot of experience with the internet and the trappings and the addictions and the trolls. And of course, I came up with message boards and the beginnings of Instagram and Twitter. So, I've learned how to have a thick skin. I've learned what to do. Whereas when she's so young and impressionable, and I'm just like, oh, let's go outside and throw a ball. I don't want to.
No, I think when we have the advantage of being old enough to not be so squishy. But this is, I mean, I know you're probably having interacted with people in Hollywood a little bit, child actors, children who have been actors. Mm-hmm. They are not allowed to develop a sense of self early when you need to be doing that constantly to really solidify who you are. And then when they grow up, because A, they're asked to be different people all the time, and B, they're asked to be almost an adult because they're in a professional working situation. And then also they're treated conditionally in a way, like their self-worth is based on what other people need from them, right? So they'll just mold themselves to what anybody else wants. And then inside they're kind of like a little hollow bunny, right?
I mean, I feel like we all kind of do that as we're learning who we're going to be. And that age of just 11 to 13 is just, it's a really hard time and you're trying to figure it out. I was very depressed at age 12. I remember just trying to figure it out. I felt awkward and felt strange in my skin. And I remember looking at the magazines, but I'll never look like this.
Oh
I
my
don't,
God, yes.
I don't even think it's a product of now. I think it's just a product of that time in your life. And it's as much as I want to help my kid through it, she's on her own journey. So all I can do is offer up my experiences and hope that she can learn from those. But I know I'm going to have to watch her trip and fall in a lot of stuff. And just, I'm constantly explaining how permanent the internet is and
Yeah.
to not take it too personally, because I was very squishy when Mythbusters started and people were mean on message boards. I took it
How
very
did you deal with
personally.
that was in 2004 or something you started, and that was the beginning of, the internet could be a very kind place, but it could also be, it was a small place, but still the people who loved you or hated you were still very vocal and could get at you, right?
I mean, my first experiment we filmed in 2002, and the show started premiering in 2003. But we got deep into the message boards probably around 2004. And I remember the tiniest. They could say all sorts of things that were worse, but for some reason, I had just we were forced to read the message boards looking for interaction with the fans. So we'd read through every message that we were sent.
Oh God!
Somebody said the most innocuous insult. It was that I was only on the show because I was a girl, because I'm a total bubblehead. And for some reason, bubblehead it was like the straw. And I just started crying and I had to go film. They're like, what? Why did that break you? I'm just like, I don't know. It's just so mean.
No. There was one person on Reddit who said I was a camel face. And every time I see a camel, I'm like, well, the proportions are the same.
I don't
listen, it's not true. Okay. I do have a long mid face. Just if you were a plastic surgeon, you'd say, yes, you have a long mid face. Cause, my dad's a plastic surgeon. He's like, okay, yeah, there's just the symmetry of the face. You kind of look at it and I have, whatever, it doesn't matter, but that's not a camel. But those little things stick in you.
Things.
1,000 people could love you, and that one thing is dangerous to you, right? So your brain focuses on those things that are dangerous to you, either through your reputation, to your career, or just to you and your feelings. And so they are magnified so much bigger. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And what do we do?
You know what? I'm glad it did, because I've grown through all of that, and I don't take any of that to heart anymore. I'm just putting stuff out that I'm proud of and that I love, and not everybody's going to love me, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I've grown a lot. I mean, I think that, I was 27 at that point. I was, still trying to figure out the world. I'm still trying to figure out the world, but it's a lot easier at 45.
No, I know. I have to tell you, after I turned 40, I was just like, oh, I don't care anymore. Yeah. I don't care. And like, I'm so like, vocal about the things I believe in now. Like before, I had a company on my shoulders. And so I was like, oh, I can't tweet too much politics because that'll reflect badly on, the company. Or like, oh, I'm not going to get a sponsor because I'm being too controversial, or I'm being too confrontational with fans. And I'm just like, I don't care anymore. All right. I'll find another way to make money, but I don't want to always be self-censoring myself. So to the point where I can't develop as a person, because I'm like, if I'm not in the shell, then I won't be liked and I won't be successful. I maybe on one path, but I don't know what other paths that I might go on when I break out of that and risk losing that to get something new,
I mean, I feel like I'm sort of reinventing now, and it's been scary not to be doing just the traditional TV that I had been doing, but I have so much faith in the fact that it's going to pay off. That even if it fails miserably, it's been an incredible adventure.
And you'll learn so much more about yourself, and you'll be so, just like the journeys we take in life are. How interesting do you want to get before you're dead, right? Do you want to be, that's it. I want to be the most interesting dead brain ever, okay?
I mean, I'm a curious person. I spend a lot of time going down rabbit holes. I'm fascinated by those sort of things.
I want to hear. Okay, so we're going to do some questions from the audience. And if you guys want to leave Felicitations questions, please go to my Discord, discord.gg/Felicia Day, and leave them with @Felicitations in one of the channels. Sean Sandaluki, look, my mod will pick them up. Or you can just go to Twitter and use #Felicitations and post the question. We had a couple here for you, Kari. So, but before we get into that, I usually do a lot of consumptive areas. So like books, TV shows. And also I just want to hear, as a fascinating person, that you are, as the fascinating person you are. What kind of hobbies have you picked up? What weird things have interested you during this quarantine that you had not been into before?
Well, I've done a lot of cooking. I'm of course one of those crazy bread people that names their sourdough starter.
What's the name?
Well, after many fails and comebacks, the grandson of Clint Yeastwood that then became Bread Sheeran, which was too. It wasn't funky enough. So now I have Evil Bread 2, which is way sour and real good.
Oh, wow. Do you get rid of the other ones, or you just like cultivate them all in a jar on the?
So they'll fail. Sometimes they'll just like I've broken a jar because my hands were greasy from trying to make homemade mayonnaise.
Did you do a burial? Did you do a burial?
No, I did a mop.
You did a mop. Okay.
Yeah.
And you made
like a pet.
What about this homemade mayonnaise situation? How do you do that?
Fail. It was disgusting. It was a fail. My sister seems to be able to do it really easily, but she's much better at life.
That was my failure with ricotta. I tried to make homemade ricotta. Have you ever done that?
No.
Oh, it's described as very simple online. Yeah. I went through 2 gallons of milk and it still did not curdle. And I'm like, how can I not curdle some cheese? Like, this should be super easy. So it made me very angry. So yet I even brought raw milk, which I've never bought before, because I'm like, that's going to give me some kind of disease. But anyway, I tried everything I could. Okay, so you've been baking a lot. You've been knife throwing. What else have you been adding to your hobby? Or like me, I always get a hobby and then I just go all in on it and it becomes like a career thing for me.
I mean, I've always done little sculptures. I've always done tons of art, and I've just had more time to do it. And I used to do black powder paintings, but since the fires, I've decided not to make any explosions in my backyard because a big puff of smoke tends to freak people out right now, and the air is bad enough. So I'm taking a little break.
Yeah. A couple people actually asked about that, and I was like, "What?" And I had to Google it to be like, "What are they talking about?" This sounds kind of like a fire hazard. Absolutely. So
I am perfectly safe, and I've been under the tutelage of many, many pyromaniacs. Pyro experts.
Technomaniacs.
I've learned a lot from a lot of people who do it lawfully. So,
yeah, but right now is probably not the time. So you do sculpture, and you studied sculpture in college, right?
I did. But the stuff I did in college was insane and not anything close to what I do now.
What do you mean? Like just welding and stuff, or like?
Just big, because I had space to do it in studios. Like I made this big king chair that had these wings that folded around so you could be in a cocoon. It was just very college art, you know.
Oh, nice. I mean, come on. I've always admired anybody who could do visual art, because I am the one thing I cannot do is see something and draw it at all. So that's kind of magic. That's a kind of magic that I really admire. Are there any TV shows or books that you've read that you would recommend to everybody?
I have gotten on a little bit of a Bitcoin thing. I'm reading the little book of Bitcoin right now, which is a great simple explanation, and I'm fascinated by crypto.
Little book of Bitcoin. Okay, I want to look that up because I don't understand it. And every time I've tried to read about it, I just go, I don't. But you know, when I do my taxes, I glaze over too. Like I said, I got my degree in math. I did not deal with numbers 3 out of 4 of those years, right? So I did only the theoretical stuff because that's what's interesting to me. And so when I have to like balance a checkbook, it is bad news bears. Okay, so little book of Bitcoin.
That's a book. I'm reading that, and a good friend has sent me I'm kind of halfway through a million books, but a friend of mine sent a signed copy of The Outsiders, which just is really nostalgic. So I'm reading that as my brain candy.
That is a good one. I've gotten into Greek and Roman literature. So for the last week, I've just been reading the footnotes on Metamorphosis by Ovid. And I don't know what, it sounds fancier than it is. I just really love Greek and Roman history, like mythology. And I just, I guess when you get something hooked in your brain, I just can't stop, right? I just want to read literally everything. Also, it ties back into the insomnia. When I had horrible insomnia before I started like some drugs to help me with all that, the anxiety, it was really just anxiety based. I would have to read the most boring thing before bed, and it turned into theoretical physics, trying to understand string theory. which made me feel helpless and lost in the world because we're so insignificant and so ignorant of how the world works. So then I went to philosophy, which was even more depressing. Then I went into the collapse of civilizations, and then I went back to Greek and Roman mythology because it's like, well, people are assaulting a lot of people, but at least it's stories versus like existential angst.
Dang, that is a lot.
It's a lot. This was over 7 months though. Like, anyway, also I've been watching a lot of British baking shows. So what do you do with that?
Oh, I love British baking show. That's a good one. Yeah.
The new season is good. I like those. The new host, right?
It's fantastic. I mean, that's one of those. That's a good show to watch with my kid. But I am obsessed with Legendary on HBO.
Wait, what is that? I don't know this show. Okay.
So it's based on New York ballroom. Do you know what that is?
I know. No. What?
Do you remember the song that Madonna did that was like,
voguing? So yes. Isn't that what Pose is about?
Yeah. Yes. It's what Pose is about, but it's a reality competition show.
What? What? Yes. I'm writing it down. Legendary.
Fantastic.
So is it like it's not like a documentary. It's about people now trying to do, because it's new and in again.
It's like judges and performances and costumes and attitude and just finding self-esteem in whoever you are. And it's so amazing.
Okay. That is 100% on my list. There's also a pottery show, Great Pottery Throwdown, I think, on HBO Max. And I'm literally hooking up that whole service just because, I think I get it free with AT&T anyway. And they gave me this really cool, free, social media package. I was like, okay, it's time for some They here are the movies you can watch. I'm like, yeah. I want the pottery show, please.
I haven't even heard of that. I know that Seth Rogen's super into pottery. I think a lot of people have gotten some pandemic pottery on. That sounds great.
Well, you know how the wheel is very you want to strangle somebody when I read any politics. So I'm just like, oh, this would be great to have a pottery wheel. Just it wouldn't make a good vase, but it certainly would feel satisfying.
I'm waiting for Patrick Swayze to show up.
Oh that movie
awesome.
That movie was very iffy. If you rewatch it, it's
doesn't stand up. I don't remember.
It either super stands up or it just needs to be on MS2
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it since it was out. So
yeah, I've seen sections. It doesn't. A lot of things don't hold up. You know what does hold up?
What?
Big Trouble Little China.
Really?
Not really. I mean, there's some problematic stuff in there with the, yeah, but whatever. Okay. If you think about it, it's really all about appropriation, but let's play.
Blade Runner stands up for me. And I know that people find it very slow of this generation. But the original Blade Runner was one of my favorite movies always. And I've seen it thousands of times.
It's so good. Have you seen all the different cuts? Because that's one of those movies you could see in 17 different ways. What is your favorite cut? I don't mean I'm not quizzing you.
Yeah, I actually really like original format because that's the one I've seen the most and that's the most comforting. And that's the one that for me, I actually took it with me when I was backpacking and on a little tiny cassette that fit in my camera so that when I really, really missed home, because we didn't really have internet so much. So I would watch it on my little camcorder screen and it was like, because Neuromancer was my favorite book. And then I saw Blade Runner.
I think they're supposed to be trying to make that into a TV show, which I'm like, one of my favorite books is, what is it? Bruce Sterling. What is that book? It's with a little girl. Guys, I'm going to look this up. Anyway, well, we have, I'm going to look it up so I can say this book. Oh, it's not The Difference Engine. It's another one. Okay, I'll get to this book. But anyway, I'll have a question that actually dovetails into something we were just talking about. Kels today asks, when we are able to travel freely again, what are your top 2 or 3 destinations, near term and long term? And what travel destinations do you want to share with your daughter? So you have been, you backpacked around the world, right? And then then you've traveled so much. Your new show is you traveling around the world. So you obviously love travel. It's very hard right now. What are you going to do? But where were you going to go when it opens back up again?
Well, we had plans to film in Pakistan, Turkey, and Costa Rica, and they all started to get canceled one after the other. So we will try to go back to those. And my favorite place to ever travel was Egypt. I was
really?
Oh, it was so amazing. I mean, it wasn't the easiest travel, but getting to, I sailed down the Nile in a felucca and like slept on it under the stars and just went to the Valley of the Kings and walked around. It was 120 degrees out, but I walked around in such fascinating, beautiful places that it was incredible.
And did you know a lot about Egyptian mythology or history at the time, or did you learn it while you were there? Like,
everywhere I went, I would. My favorite thing was to make friends with kids because they would tell you, they were the greatest tour guides, and they'd always take me to the most interesting places, and I'd end up in kitchens with mamas cooking me food. So.
Is that how you just try? And that was not part of the show. That's just the way you travel.
Oh, this was when I was 23 and sleeping in doorways and sneaking on trains. Now I stay in nice hotels and have fixers that help me. And the production company that does my show is Andrew Zimmern's, and he's a chef. So everywhere we go, we eat
so forget it.
I am really well.
And see, I never roughed it. I never roughed it when I was young, and I could never rough it now. Like, it's just not going to be. I even like the idea of peeing in the woods is like a little traumatic for me.
Really? It's so easy. That's like a life skill. Like my daughter's scared of it, and I was like, no, girl, this is something you gotta learn. You practice in the shower. She's like, no, I'm scared. I'm like, okay, come into the bushes. I'm going to do it with you. Drop your pants.
Wow. Yeah. It's a family outing.
Well, I'm going to teach her life skills. There are things you got to know as a woman. And Mythbusters never had bathrooms for the ladies. Maybe a porta potty if you're lucky. We'd be in a quarry or a forest. So you got to be able to pee without getting on your shoes.
Wow. Which is that is hard. That is hard because the angle, they have these funnels you can buy now.
You have a pea-covered funnel.
Yeah, then you have a pea-covered funnel. It's true.
Yeah,
okay.
It's all about muscle control. Something that's good after you had a baby anyway. You learn how to aim it, and
you can aim your pea. What?
Of course. Practice in the shower.
Okay. Yeah. No, I should. I had a C-section, so I guess I'm not like I don't have the lithe. Whatever that is.
No excuse. Like it really is. It feels like what happens if the apocalypse happens? You got to live outside. What?
True. I'm gonna have pea toes. You'll be like, oh, it's old pea toes day over there.
Just smells terrible. I will show up with my machete, which I keep under my bed,
and you'll be like, oh, here's the toilet.
Hold on. My ultimate goal between you and me and the internet is to learn how to fully stand and do it, because there is a method to do it. It's called like a pinch method, and I've seen videos and I can't figure it out.
There's videos. There's videos for everything. I know that. Okay. Well, this is going to be my new end of summer. Well, I guess it's fall now. So this will be my fall goal that I just go. I mean, my baby does nature peas. So I'll let her go in the backyard just because I'm like, okay, we can practice, but I've never done a nature pea. So maybe I need to start doing that in my backyard.
I was in the rave scene in the early 90s for a minute. So that was a lot of festivals and such. Maybe that's where I started to hone my skills.
Yeah, that's where cool people go, right? With raves. Did you? Yeah, we had the. Okay, guys, it was The Diamond Age by Neil Stevenson. So it wasn't even the right author. It was
not even close.
It's a really good book. Okay,
I will put it on my list.
Most of those, I'm sorry, but most of the cyberpunk books are really hard to get through. Like they're not 100% accessible. It's like contemporary sci-fi. There's a lot of very theoretical physics based contemporary sci-fi, and people are like, oh my god, it's amazing. And I try to get into it, and I'm like, it was great, but I don't want to admit that I'm like, I didn't really like it because the characters are never that important. It's always about the esoteric, world building, and I don't know. I've
started and not finished a lot of sci-fi, but when you find a good one that sucks you in, it's always people who can really write characters. It's the Neil Gaimans of the world that can really develop a character.
Anne Leakey, have you ever read those? Those are so incredible. Okay, I have a couple of questions. Let's see. Richard Gagnon asks, he always asks good questions. What's your favorite scary movie? Which I guess I picked that because it's October.
So many. So, I mean, like when I was really young, like Poltergeist scared me and The Shining scared me. And as I got older, I kind of like the sexy horror movies. Like The Hunger was my favorite vampire movie do you remember that one? It was Susan Sarandon, Catherine Deneuve, and David Bowie. That was hot.
That sounds hot.
Yeah. And it was like, I think Bauhaus was the opening band in that movie that, they were going through the 80s club scene. And it was very LGBTQ positive, and
I don't know why I've never seen that. I avoid all scary movies. The scariest movie I've ever seen is Babe Pig in the City, or maybe Guillermo del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth. I think that was my favorite because I would watch that again. I don't like people being dismembered or being hunted. It bothers me.
I really liked special effects, and I always wanted to do that. And I wanted to make monsters, and I wanted to make exploding faces. So like Evil Dead 2. Amazing.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a different category. I'm talking like Saw. Like I don't want people.
That's I don't feel like that's like a different. There's so many different genres. There's like thriller, like Seven is the most.
Yes, amazing.
Amazing.
Yes.
Then you get like Saw horror. It's not necessarily my favorite. I get more into like cheesy, like Hellraiser or Friday the 13th, or there was a movie called Trick or Treat that was hair metal bands.
What about wasn't there like Leprechaun movies? I've seen a couple of those. Okay, you guys. I've seen like when they look really bad, I'll watch them. Like, but there's just not my Seven was a great. Now that I think about it, people don't make movies like that anymore. But those were like the best. Those kind of thriller sort of. Shocking. It's almost like Ashley Judd was in a lot of them. Remember that, like early 2000s. Late 90s. Anyway, okay. Let's get through a couple more questions. Sean Sandaluki one of my mods asks, what special challenges have you faced as a mother in the entertainment industry? That's a good question.
I mean, that's kind of a funny one because first of all, I had never seen anybody pregnant on TV when I did it, and I was scared I was going to lose my job. And since I do work in the entertainment industry in a very scrappy budget, I had to save up so much money because there's no maternity leave. I don't have benefits, and I wasn't sure I was coming back. So
wait. You didn't, I guess it wasn't union, huh? That's not a union show.
No, Discovery was not a union show. It was all reality. So I literally scraped and saved because I knew I wanted to.
And they didn't give you maternity leave?
Well, you get the state mandated, but you don't.
That's not right.
I wasn't even sure I was going to come back. They all of a sudden started interviewing girls to take my place temporarily. But I'm like, they're trying real hard to fill that space. And they picked somebody pretty darn
wow. That is so, that should be illegal, right? Like that.
Not union. That's how I think that's
you're right.
Reality TV.
Yeah. There's no protections, you guys, there's no protections. And the fact that women are penalized in a lot of ways for having children it's an endemic problem that feeds all the other problems with women in the industry, because then they're not able to advance to be in upper management, to be in charge of things, and it just perpetuates itself. And then fewer women are hired because there are fewer higher ups. Like this is really like child and taking care of women who are pregnant and having babies. Like that is such a horrible thing when you hear like what happens in Finland to women. They get 6 months off or a year off, like
so jealous.
No, they do. And they get, there is a support system for them. And so it is, whenever European people hear about things like that, they're just kind of horrified because what their standards are just nothing like that. So it is, I can't believe there's no law that would have protected you. So thank goodness you came back. But at the same time, I'm so sorry you had to go through that because it's already the most stressful thing to experience in your life. Why have that on top of it, right? I
mean, I worked up to my due date. I worked because I didn't want to turn down any money. So that's why there's video of me where I am huge. I am 10 months pregnant. Myth busted. It's 9. It's 9 from when you find out. 10 months pregnant. Like my due date, I'm on camera, like waddling away from one of Grant's robots that's chasing me. Like I still nature peed with that big old belly. And then when I came back 4 months later, I was pumping my breast in the back of a minivan, talking on the radio at a bomb range. And they'd be like, what is that noise? Like, nothing. Trying to find a cooler to stick the breast milk in. And then a PA gets it all over his hands and he starts to cry because ew.
It's just milk, guys. It tastes really good too. There's a lot of comments. I usually don't refer to my chat because this is an audio podcast first and foremost. But a lot of people in Europe, it's 12. You get 2 years of paid maternity leave in Austria, but only 1 is paid.
Oh,
and then New Zealand, Australia also has a very generous leave, and the fact that you're protected to have your job when you get back. So even in my Fenrig, I don't know where you're from, but even my backwater country, it's normal for women to have 1 year pregnancy leave, and then the father can get 6 months. So the idea that, it's just so interesting. This country just can't get behind its own self-interest. Like, why is that unreasonable to support women?
We're in entertainment. So there's also this strange thing that happens where your opportunities change, and suddenly you can't be tough or sexy or strong. You're suddenly pigeonholed a lot into mommy roles or
100%.
Or children's education. Whereas,
which are all lower paying opportunities, right? So the minute you become a mother, there is this perception of men to you. And I don't care what they say, it 100% influences the way they hire you for things, right? And they don't consider you their priority. It's this weird sort of like wish fulfillment and interacting with women that, oh, this is a woman I would date or be with in a more crude way, right? And I do believe that it is endemic to Hollywood. I've seen a radical change in the way I'm treated and the opportunities I get and what people think I should be doing, which is enabling other people more than myself, which is being more behind the camera or in a supporting role. And women my age are not able to have that sort of like voice to be the center person, because your job now is to be supportive of other people. And that's what, it's just upsetting.
For ladies like you and me. We don't believe in any of that.
Nope.
And we will be not only the change makers, but we will be the ones that are hiring. So I feel like you and I.
Yeah. No, we are women who do not take no for an answer, and we'll just make our own opportunities. And people act like, oh, if you're not here, you're nothing. That's not true, because wherever we are something. All right. I love it. Thank you for that question. Let's see. Gayaka, just 2 more questions. Gayaka asks, what is it like being a woman working in the traditional male spaces? Do you have advice for young women going into similar careers? So I don't know what you could say our careers are. We made our careers based on our passions, but I certainly would never have planned being here. Would you have?
No. And I actually never stop. So my dog is blind and mostly deaf. So if she farts, she thinks it's the door because nothing's happening. And literally that was gas. That was amazing. She's 14 and a half. What are you going to do?
You can't do anything.
Live from the house.
The romance of our lives.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to have advice for women going into things now, because the world has changed a lot from when I entered into the workforce, and I just followed my heart and followed what I wanted to do and followed my passions. And I never thought of myself as breaking any ground, because I was just doing what I wanted to do, and it started to form around me. Now that I have more awareness, I think I changed the way I do things. I think that we're very lucky now. Women are less apologetic and they are way more badass. And I feel like this generation is killing it. And I'm so excited to see how many people are busting in and changing the way that we entertain. So I am so hopeful when I see like Simone Yurts doing her shitty robots. Or,
oh my gosh, she's amazing.
She's awesome. And, Diana Corwin doing Physics Gal. Like there's so many SciComm women that are just kicking ass. So
but they're going around to they're going around the traditional places to do that still, right?
They're doing it themselves.
They're doing it themselves, which is so amazing that we have these outlets to be able to do our own thing outside of the industry, in a sense. I mean, it's harder, but at the same time, a lot of people find success because they are doing things that people can't find other places. Also, I would just add to that, I think there's more of a mentality with women and girls nowadays to be each other's allies, because I think when we were like 25, right, there were maybe one girl in a science class. I was always
try to pit us against each other, and it was sad.
And then you kind of buy into that, Laura. Well, there's only one space for a girl on the panel, or what? I mean, we still are faced with that sometimes, but it's much less, and people will call people out a lot more on it, and they will ally with other women a little bit more to support each other. Whereas there were so few people, women in positions of being able to offer opportunities, that it felt like you need to protect your ground a little bit more. And I really love the fact that spirit, because that's what guys did anyway, right? Like they had their area and they'd let a couple people in based on their own needs, right? Now it's like women are like, no, our needs are here, right? And we're going to let people in who we think are cool. So it's not, of course, there, but it is improving.
I just feel like the old institutional entertainment outlets, there's a reason they are antiquated and desperately clawing at the new ways, because they stopped taking risks and they started pigeonholing themselves and started just playing to their audience. Mythbusters had an audience that was 8 to 80, men and women. And you would watch it and it wasn't necessarily in your genre. So a lot of people started to get into it that maybe wouldn't have watched it. Whereas now every channel has the focus, because they're trying so desperately to get that advertiser. Whereas you need to every now and then make a Walking Dead or a Mad Men. You need to like jump out there and make a Mythbusters. You need to go outside the box. And that's what Netflix and Hulu and all the streaming services are doing.
Yeah. And then it's succeeding because you don't stand out by doing something that everybody else is already doing. The things that stand out are like, oh, I've never seen that before. That's that experience, right? And, I can't tell you how many times I've pitched project after project about quirky women who were either fangirls or fan women or, really off kilter, and nobody was ever bought anything I pitched, and maybe a couple times I've gotten an option and then it just dies because it's like, it's really not our demo. And I'm like, you mean it's not like the other things you do? And so I'm like, well, that's okay. You can like be beaten down by the system. You could stop coming up with ideas and only come up with ideas for the system, or you can do your own thing. And that's what I admire about you. Not only did you do it back then, you're doing it now. And I think it's so inspiring. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, last question. Yeah.
We're in good company. We got a lot of us.
I know. I would do anything with you any time of the day. Okay, so last question. Rowena's wife, Siago, and I think this is from, this is actually a Supernatural fan who was asking Ruth Connell a question, but I think it was a cool question, so I'm just going to use it now. What was the most magical moment of your life?
I mean, if I don't say my kid, like, she'll kill me in my sleep, right? So. I have magical moments all the time. I am really inspired by things that don't seem like they should exist. At one point when I was in Turkey, I climbed up this place called Mount Olympus and saw where fire was coming out of rocks because a natural gas was leaking out. And at one point lightning hit it. And so there's just fire happening all over these rocks. And they used to light the Olympic torches off of it. And I had this moment of just nature, and it was magical because it's earth science and it's real, but it just seems so fantastic. So I have a lot of those moments. Every time I look at a sunset, I feel like it's magic.
I mean, it feels like you have made it your mission in life to find magic in the world and share it, and share why it's not so magical. It really is just the world around us. Finding the magic in our world around us. That's what it feels like you've done a lot in your career.
That sounds so nice.
It is. It's wonderful. I mean, like, I think for me, the magic, I mean, of course, I wouldn't say that like giving birth to my daughter and having a baby, like I did not know what to do with that baby. But recently, especially when she's really come into her own and her personality is really like being able to be like, I really like you as a person. Like I see the person you're going to be. And I not only love you unconditional, I like who you're going to be. And I just want to help you be everything you could be. I think that's a magical moment. But also when you find something and I'm able to share like something new and enrich somebody else's life, that really gives me a lot of, it's kind of magical to be able to give somebody else magic. I don't know. I don't know if that's articulate. Certainly not as articulate.
I know what you're saying.
Anyway, okay, we're gonna wrap this up because we could talk hours a day. I feel like you are so fascinating.
we didn't even get into this. I feel like you and I should have a glass of wine sometime and make this crazy.
Yes, I will do. If you ever want to play on screen off, I am at your command. I am so glad that we had this time on camera. Let's have some off camera, but I appreciate all the viewers here. Please subscribe, share the podcast, and Kari, where would you like people to follow you and find your work?
Of course, you can go to projectexplorer.org and check out Crash Test World. But if you have any more questions, I am on Twitter at Kari Byron and on Instagram and Facebook at The Real Kari Byron.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you later. Bye.